Today, January 14th, 2026, the Philippines assumes the chairmanship of ASEAN. The South China Sea, vital for global trade, faces rising tensions as China asserts its claims. All eyes are on Manila to lead the 10-member bloc through a challenging year. The Philippines must navigate these pressures and foster unity within ASEAN. The world is watching how Manila will steer ASEAN in this pivotal year. Section 2. The ASEAN Way. Consensus in a time of crisis. Understanding ASEAN requires understanding its unique operational philosophy, often called the ASEAN Way. The organization operates on the principles of non-interference in the internal affairs of member states, and most critically, consensus-based decision-making. This process was designed to respect the sovereignty of each nation, fostering a sense of equality among members of varying size and economic power. However, in a time of crisis, this consensus model can become a significant challenge. The chairmanship of ASEAN rotates annually among its members, giving each nation a chance to set the agenda and guide discussions. The Philippines' chairmanship in 2026 is therefore uniquely critical. The challenge for Manila will be to frame the discussion not just as a Philippine problem, but as an ASEAN problem. The success or failure of this effort will demonstrate whether the ASEAN way can adapt to the geopolitical realities of the 21st century. China's sweeping claim to the South China Sea is represented by the 9-line. This U-shaped demarcation encroaches on ASEAN members' exclusive economic zones. In 2016, the Philippines won a landmark victory, rejecting the 9-line. China dismissed the ruling and continues grey zone tactics. These actions assert control, challenging ASEAN and global maritime security. Section 4. The Second Thomas Shoal, a flashpoint in focus. Nowhere is the confrontation between the Philippines and China more visible than at the Second Thomas Shoal. Known locally as Ayungin Shoal, this submerged reef lies well within the Philippines' 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. In 1999, the Philippine military deliberately grounded a World War II-era transport ship, the BRP Sierra Madre, on the shoal to serve as a makeshift military outpost. China, which also claims the shoal, is determined to force the Philippines to abandon the outpost. Every attempt by the Philippines to conduct a routine resupply mission for the Marines on the BRP Sierra Madre is met with resistance. The use of powerful water cannons by Chinese vessels has become a regular occurrence, causing damage to Philippine ships and endangering the lives of their crews. The situation is a dangerous game of chicken. A miscalculation by either side could easily lead to an escalation, with potentially devastating consequences for regional stability. Another critical point of friction is Scarborough Shoal, known in the Philippines as Panatag Shoal. This traditional fishing ground, a triangular chain of reefs and rocks, is located about 120 nautical miles west of the Philippine island of Luzon. It lies squarely within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. However, the situation changed dramatically in 2012. Following a tense standoff between Philippine and Chinese naval vessels, China seized de facto control of the shoal, effectively blockading it and preventing Filipino fishermen from accessing its lagoon. The 2016 arbitral ruling declared that Scarborough Shoal was a traditional fishing ground for fishermen of multiple nationalities and that China had unlawfully interfered with Filipino fishing rights. Despite this clear legal judgment, Beijing has continued its blockade, defying international law. The situation at Scarborough Shoal represents a clear example of China's strategy of creating new facts on the ground, or in this case, on the water. One of the greatest obstacles to a unified regional response to the South China Sea issue is, honestly, the division within ASEAN itself. The 10 member states just do not share the same perspective or interests. The bloc can, be broadly divided into two camps, the claimant states and the non-claimant states. The mainland states, particularly Cambodia and Laos, have become heavily dependent on Chinese investment, trade, and political support. This economic leverage gives Beijing significant influence over their foreign policy decisions, and they have often been reluctant to support strong ASEAN statements that might criticize China. This division has, more than once, led to paralysis within ASEAN. As chair in 2026, the Philippines faces the daunting task of bridging this divide. Overcoming these internal fault lines is the first and most crucial step toward a meaningful ASEAN position. For more than 2 decades, ASEAN and China have been negotiating a code of conduct for the South China Sea. The goal is to establish a set of rules and norms to manage disputes, prevent incidents from escalating, and hopefully build trust among the parties. Progress, however, has been painfully slow. The Philippines, as ASEAN chair, has made the advancement of the code of conduct a top priority. Manila's vision is for a code that is not just a list of vague principles, but a practical tool for crisis management. However, major disagreements persist, primarily with China. Achieving consensus on a meaningful code of conduct in 2026 will be an uphill battle. The ultimate goal of a binding code that effectively constrains aggressive behavior remains elusive. But for the Philippines, pushing the process forward is a critical part of its strategy to manage the dispute through diplomacy and rules, rather than through force. Faced with overwhelming pressure from China, the Philippines has, actively sought to strengthen its security partnerships with countries outside of ASEAN. The cornerstone of this strategy is its alliance with the United States. Beyond the United States, the Philippines has been building a network of like-minded security partners. Japan has become a particularly important ally, providing the Philippine Coast Guard with patrol vessels and surveillance equipment. Similarly, Australia has deepened its defense ties with Manila, conducting joint patrols in the South China Sea and enhancing intelligence sharing. These partnerships are not about forming an anti-China coalition, but about building a collective capacity to uphold a free and open Indo-Pacific based on international law. The strategy for the Philippines is one of integrated deterrence. The goal is not to provoke a conflict, but to make the cost of aggression unacceptably high for any potential adversary. The year 2026 is shaping up to be a defining moment for the Philippines, for ASEAN, and for the future of the Indo-Pacific. As Manila takes the helm of the regional bloc, it carries the weight of expectation. The world is watching to see if the Philippines can successfully rally its neighbors to forge a unified and principled stand against coercion in the South China Sea. The stakes are honestly incredibly high. The challenge is immense. Success will require a masterful display of diplomacy, persistence, and strategic patience. The outcome of this year will have long-lasting implications. A successful chairmanship marked by greater ASEAN unity and tangible progress on a code of conduct would reinforce the bloc's relevance and strengthen the rules-based order. The path forward is fraught with difficulty, but for the Philippines and for ASEAN, the cost of inaction is far greater than the risk of taking a stand.